My point is as follows, that the new urban agenda, and she talked about the takeaways. The new urban agenda comes at a time when there's a generalized environment which believes urban is the future, urban is the solution, urban is equal to poverty reduction. That's the kind of generalized environment that probably has been created in the world and including here. So that's the context in which the new urban agenda arises. And the new urban agenda is nothing but an instrument. I mean, we can critique it, we can celebrate it, and it is very right. I agree 100% with you that its sham needs to also be exposed in various ends. What does it really legitimize? But at the end of the day, it offers an instrument. But it offers also a mirror for us to reflect on. And my first point pertains to that particular mirror. Uh, where are we when we are talking about a possibility of a change? The first reflection I'd have as a takeaway is a question of looking at instruments for change. And I think that's where a lot of upheavals, in a sense, are going on. So, if I'm sitting in a city, what are really the instruments of change available for me as a slum dweller, as a homeless, as a domestic worker, and any of the constituencies, Shipra, you talked of? You talked of the disabled people, organizations, and so on and so forth. Are these instruments really the ones that can make change happen? Uh, I'm afraid the answer would be mixed, and I'm afraid I'd be a bit pessimistic about it because it doesn't seem like, and possibly it has to do with the evolution of urbanization itself, and that the strength of mass movements, the strength of struggles in the urban area, one can only be positive and see it growing. And I think that's where we need to be really looking at what, therefore, the new urban agenda offers to us. A conquest of a city or control of a city, which the framework of the new urban agenda somewhat offers by the use of the word right to the city, would mean really a literal conquest of the city. So, what really is the instrument there? Are there mass movements? Are there struggles? Are there powerful people's formations? Are there the mass formations which are going to take the city over? Or are the instruments of governance, which you so helpfully raised, Shavik, are they really there? I mean, what's really happening to the 74th Amendment? Dinesh, you were talking about the question of MCD polls. Is that the instrument which is going to deliver a challenge to the new urban agenda? One can't imagine it doing so. They can put Julela, and all that can happen. So, in that sense, I think my first point would be to look at the instruments and work with the instruments for change and strengthen those instruments for change. Whether it's to do with the urban local governance or whether it's to do largely with the mass formations. My second point, therefore, is the choice of the issues you pick up. And once again, the range of speakers here before me have already spoken to that. Now, obviously, popular agendas have to be chosen. So, one would have to look at the bigger historical question, and the question of the battalion of wage hunters and gatherers in this country, the large reserve army of labor, who I won't call will have their resolution in the urban side. I don't see cities giving them jobs, as some of us were sort of hinting to. I really don't see that happen historically or ecologically, or it's just not tenable, it's just not possible. But that's an unaddressed question. That's an unaddressed question which transacts the countryside and the town. And that's a question where we, in contesting or even in building a response to the new urban agenda, one would have to really pick up. So for me, labor question and the associated issues of housing and the associated issues of social security, social protection, and the associated issues of spaces and control over spaces constitute the key area to look at in terms of building a popular response. And popular response, I won't call it to the new urban agenda, but I would call it a popular response to urbanization per se. And the third one is about the imagery. What kind of an imagery do we have with reference to the idea of what urbanization needs to be? A lot of speakers talk to that, and Shipra, your point on what the World Urban Campaign does in the city we need is essentially about creating an imagery of the city we want, of the city we need. ActionAid's own response to this whole context of the people's vision of the city is about an imagery of the city. So what's the kind of city we are talking about? What's an ecological city? What's a sustainable city? What's a popular city? What is mass transportation in a city? What's a city which includes everybody? So in a sense, creating a social imagery, addressing those fundamental questions, that urbanization is not an answer to poverty. It's not, it's, if India can urbanize and keep on urbanizing, it's not going to resolve the unaddressed peasant question in India, and that needs to be resolved. The agrarian question needs to be resolved. The labor question will see a resolution thereof. That's the imagery that needs to be created. So my third basic takeaway is the idea that the new urban agenda offers to all of us in the so-called quote-unquote civil society, of which there is a lot of debate needed, the possibility of creating a larger social imagery to contest the generalized environment in the world, that it is inevitable, urbanization is inevitable, this is the way to go, this is how north went, this is how south must follow in the same path without any variation. I'll only say this and sort of invite you, if there is time, Banashri, to a more reflective debate of what should therefore be the agenda going forward for all of us. Thank you so much.